who are you in this space? So going to a model that I use, that I developed. So for the last 2.5 years, I've been really working to refine a model that I use with my clients. And it's based on the 3 brain work that they've done in neuroscience, right? So neuroscience has found that we have 3 brains, right? We have these collections of cellular structures that mimic one another in our heads, our hearts, and in our guts, right? And that they not only mimic one another, but they communicate, right? So they call these brains, right? And we can align that. And I have in my model, align that with IQ, EQ, and what I call the gut region is PQ, or Percipients Quotient, right? So the IQ is our head brain. That's aligned with our cerebral intelligence. And that's where we think, right? So one of the things I have my clients, if there's a particular thing they're trying to get aligned with, right, is what do you think about this? And write out everything you think. And if you're not a writer, if you're a speaker, speak it out. Find someone to speak to, talk into some device that you can, capture your words, because some of us process better through communication, verbal communication. But whatever it is, process through what you're thinking, right? What's coming from that head brain, get it down. And then, and then give yourself a step away, do some, there's different exercises that I walk people through to kind of erase, what they've just been doing, and in order to go into the next brain space, right? So that they're not in the thinking mode anymore. It's funny. A lot of times people are like, what are you feeling? Like, well, I think I feel like you're thinking, right?
Yeah.
You get into the feeling space, not the thinking what you're feeling. But then once you can kind of reset, then go into, and sometimes it's helpful to actually put your hands over the different spaces, as you're processing, but, asking your heart what it feels, right? So about this particular thing, what are you feeling? Right? And a lot of times when we're feeling, when we're trying to put it into words, it's processing through this brain, right? Because the language comes from here. This space, our heart brain, communicates differently. It uses different language. And so sometimes I tell people it's easier to maybe use things that are nonverbal, like colors or sounds, or, even things that might come up like, oh, the first thing I'm thinking of is a cactus. Well, what are the attributes of a cactus? It's prickly. It's, it's all these different things, right? It's mysterious. Somebody one time said cactus, they're mysterious. I'm like, that's new. I like that.
Yeah. Wow.
Mysterious cactus. But just what represents what you're feeling. But that's the key. And just jot down what comes up. It doesn't have to be the sentence structure like what you're thinking. However, I'm feeling the colors of blue, purple, and green. Well, where are they in your body? Oh, they're in my, they're, I don't know, they're in my left kidney, or whatever, comes up, and it's like, this is so strange. Don't try to make sense out of it. Just write it down. Wow. And then we kind of reset and we go into the gut, right? And the gut senses, right? So what am I sensing about this? Now that's probably the most challenging. And what I think is interesting is, with this design, we've even seen the development of, like, well, for God's age, we've been talking about IQ, right? It's been raining. So there's still one coming, people. Right. It doesn't stop.
Hi, Traci.
We still have gut, to come. But it's getting people to really, this it's interesting because gut speaks so differently than the head and heart.
Right.
Sensory perception is in an instant. So it comes in differently too. Sometimes when we sit, it can be so quiet and so fast we miss it. Right? And most human beings, even if you're very sensitive, even if you're empathic, have so come to be conditioned to override their instincts because of everything we've been taught in the world as we've been taught it, right? Override those instincts. And only usually when we're in critical situations do we listen, because it's between life and death at that point, right? And we want to continue to exist. Right. So we'll override our heads in those cases. But normally, because this has gotten so much attention and support, we will go here first. And so oftentimes it's just helping people to develop. We actually do have information coming from different parts of our bodies. It comes differently, right? We process it differently and we utilize it differently. right? And I always believe that any way to tap into something starts with awareness, right? So first of all, just what I'm saying right now may be brand new to people who are listening. They're like, what is this? You know, so that's that first seed of awareness. But the more we look into it, and that's partially why I spend so much time with my clients teaching them how to do this, right? How do we, come to understand, is that head, is that heart, is that gut?
Sure.
What is this information? Where is it coming from? And is one supposed to override the others? Like, is this still the ultimate decision maker? Do I need to funnel everything up, or do I need to funnel everything down, or where do I? And my answer is always, at best, it's our own acknowledgement and integration of where we're getting information from all three brains. Because when we practice that, especially intentionally, we do start to align these things. And if we look at, let's say, the problems that we have in our bodies lately, think about the top issues other than cancer, because cancer can be anywhere in the body.
Sure.
The top issues that we have right now, mental illness and Alzheimer's, right? People losing their memory, like literally not being able to operate from this space anymore. I believe when we stop operating from a certain space, it's because we're supposed to be developing other spaces. I don't want to have to lose this to develop these personally, right? We've been so pushing down our hearts and guts and putting so much pressure on the head brain to do all of the work.
So true.
That we literally start to lose the capacity to use that anymore. Right? So for health alone, but also heart problems. And I just read something on LinkedIn the other day. It was like a 40-some-year-old woman who had a heart attack, and gut problems, right? Digestive problems, Crohn's, an all-time high in young kids. I mean, we start to look at the actual health conditions and the problems we're having, and they're directly aligned with where we have either been allowing ourselves to access too much an area or not enough. Right? Wow. So that's the model I work with.
Love it.
That question of tapping in, because it's something that we can actually measure. As much as people go, well, how do you measure that? Well, you measure it in a lot of ways. You measure it, and first of all, how's your life? Is your health, how is your health improving? Are your relationships improving? Are your opportunities improving? As we do this work, that's measurement alone. But also too, we have a place we can actually, label and say, oh, this is something I can go to. This is a tool. This is a process. This is something that I can utilize to better develop. And as I do that, all sorts of other things start to come through as well.